Silicon Zombies, episode 134. We've got Mr. Robert Scoble in the house, and we bring you the best brains from the Bay and beyond. What a treat it is to have you here, Robert. So thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks.
The man, the myth, the legend, and we're going to be exploring a little bit about what it is to be in the Silicon Valley. This place is super unique, and you have had a front stage seat. I mean, this guy.
Siri was launched in my house.
I was just about to say it's crazy stuff. So we've got a legend.
First ride in the first Mercedes-Benz autonomous car.
And we're just excited to dive into all of this stuff.
I launched Cloudera.
Well, it was just like boom, boom, boom. It's like, I love it. So before, set the stage for us. Like, you grew up about a mile from Infinite Loop, Apple, where Apple was. So maybe walk us through a little bit about how you got started, what technology means to you personally.
The luckiest thing that ever happened to me was my dad got a PhD and took us out of poverty. He grew up in the projects in Brooklyn, New York, and got a PhD, and his first job was out here. So that was...
what was his PhD in?
Material science and electrical engineering. And he bought a house in Cupertino, California in 1971.
Wow.
When Apple started in 1976.
Yeah.
So I got to watch it grow up, and I was, because of that, I was Apple's first child laborer.
So do I smell a lawsuit? Maybe?
No.
Okay. Statute of limitations.
It launched me into a pretty remarkable career.
Yeah.
My mom got a job from Hildy Licht, who still runs contract manufacturing in Silicon Valley.
Right.
And Apple ran out of manufacturing capability for Apple II, and they hired her to build more motherboards. And so my mom was one of the housewives that Hildy Licht hired to build motherboards, and that's how I got my start.
You can't write that stuff.
No, I learned to solder on Apple II motherboards, and that got me my first job working at Hewlett Packard on a manufacturing line running a soldering machine.
That's foundational. So speaking of the Apple II, so when I was doing research about you, you said that was a really impactful experience for you when you first opened that. Walk us through what it was like for you when you unboxed the Apple II.
Well, I was in the first computer club at a junior high in Cupertino when I was 13 years old. We bought, I think, 2 of them. And there was only 5 kids in the club. So only 5 kids were in the first one, right? It was a small group of nerds who cared about this new thing. And I knew even back then that it would change my life. I didn't know how it would, but I knew this thing was going to be part of my life.
Did it feel like a runaway train technology, or was it still
No, it's not like today. Today it feels like a runaway train. I mean, on X.com, I have a list of 5,500 AI companies. This is insane.
And 500,000 followers, which is kind of, so make sure you follow Robert Scoble on Twitter.
Yeah, it's insane what's going on, because we're in a bunch of exponential curves right now. We're in the next 18 months, humans are going to see more change than we've ever seen before.
What's the best way for people to prepare for this change?
Of it around here, right?
Yeah,
autonomous cars.
We're at ground zero, right? So I think one of the interesting things is, like, when thought leaders give advice for what students should be studying. Like, how do they prepare for your life when things are changing so dramatically, Robert? Like, how do you even know what trajectory to take?
Well, that's one reason I built these lists, because I needed to get a handle on it myself. Yeah. It's like, wow, there's a lot of change coming. How do I study this? How do I keep up? And I'm following 23,000 people in the AI world on X.com, all in real-time lists on big screen at home. So I can watch the whole world go by, and I can watch everybody in this industry talking about the industry, and they're the ones who warn me, new model's out, or a new thing is coming. Right?
It is kind of like an interesting digital town square. I mean, it's crazy that Elon follows you. That's pretty wild.
Well, I had the first ride in the first Tesla. He gave me a ride before he gave his best friend a ride in the first Tesla.
Tell us that story.
Well, I was out to dinner with Jason Calacanis, who's a venture capitalist now, an investor here in town. And we were having dinner, and he goes, and Jason and Elon are best friends.
Yeah.
So he's like,
besties,
besties, right? And he's like, I think Elon just got his new car. And he called him up during dinner, and Elon, sure enough, had just got his new car and drove down to see us. And then we had a drag race where we had a little race. I was live streaming it on a Nokia phone. So I've been a pioneer in mobile phone media for a long time, or that kind of TV. Yeah. And I was live streaming it on a Nokia phone. right? So that was 15 years ago. Or
you could do that. You've also been a pioneer in the XR space. So the title of the show is Spatially Speaking, because things are changing super dramatically with augmented reality, with virtual reality. So what first got you interested in that space, and where do you see things going in the next 6 to 12 months?
So I worked as a strategist at Microsoft, and they flew me all over the world to go and visit startups and R&D labs in Israel and Europe and everywhere else. And I ended up in a parking lot at Metaio. Metaio back then made, if you remember it, going to a Lego store, you would take a box off the shelf and hold it in front of a camera, and then it would augment the model that's inside the box, right, on top of the box. That was Metaio that made that. And they were showing me monsters on the sides of skyscrapers 13 years ago on a laptop out in their parking lot. I was like, this is dope. I need more of this in my life, right? And that company got bought by Apple, and the guy who was giving me the tour ended up building the strategy for the Apple Vision Pro. So, which I wrote 2 books on spatial computing about that before Apple shipped Vision Pro because of people like that.
I see.
Because I kept seeing entrepreneurs starting weird 3D sensor company or monsters on the sides of skyscrapers.
But the market wasn't there. It was just like a cool technology.
No, that was 12, 13 years ago. It's just coming back.
Do you think like consumer or B2B space is like more interesting to you personally for this?
I'm a consumer guy at heart. I pay attention to manufacturing because I started my career at Hewlett Packard on manufacturing line. I like understanding how things are made. That's sort of a weird thing of mine. And I study enterprise companies because like Mike Arrington, who started TechCrunch, hated covering enterprise companies. He said nobody cares about them. There's no audience for that. And I would still write them up and do videos with them. Like Cloudera's founder told me the video I did with him is still today the #1 marketing thing on YouTube for Cloudera, right?
Wow.
Because it's a simple little video of him talking on a whiteboard about his company. You know?
So when you were an influencer with Microsoft specifically, and they were flying you all over the place, you probably got a lot of data points on what makes for a successful company. Can you? Because we got a lot of founders in the audience. So help us understand, like, what are some kind of, I know it's a tricky question, but how do you think about this?
First of all, you have to skate to where the puck is going, right? So, because if you're starting a company today, your venture capitalist probably give you enough cash to survive 18 months, right? So you got to start making shit happen now to pay the venture capitalist back and or put you in play to do a company. There's a lot of companies that I've seen that come along at the right time.
So luck, basically.
Instagram, I was the 79th user of Instagram. I met them over at the pier, 2 guys sitting at a picnic table starting a little photo app. It was not the first photo app, right? There was photo apps before that. Chase Jarvis, who's a photographer up in Seattle, had one and fucked it up because his development team left. Right? So some of it's luck, some of it's interpersonal relationships, some of it's being in the right place at the right time, some of it's just having usually it's a better product, but better product comes out of all of that, right? If you don't have a good culture, if you don't have people working together who are really smart, you're not going to have the best product.
So you're saying that luck plays a major factor, but you also mentioned culture. What are some ways to lay the foundation for a good culture, aside from like picking the right team and so on and so forth?
Focus on it early. I hear this from, if you talk to famous entrepreneurs who've done it, this is something I hear often from them, that they did not focus on culture early enough. They did not focus on keeping, some asshole like me from hurting people, from tearing the company apart, not focusing on the right thing. Here's a story. GoPro started 200 yards from my house, so I got to know GoPro. And they used to have board meetings, i.e., go out surfing with the executives and have a board meeting out on the waves. Well, when they went public, they stopped doing that because the bean counters got hired by the organization to run the business, and they killed stuff like that.
I see.
And that's culture.
Yeah.
And that's where innovation comes from too, because it's having the freedom to go surfing in the morning with smart people. That's what comes up with great new product ideas. In fact, GoPro started it on the surf wave, right? So they should have had that as part of their culture that stuck through the IP.
Yeah.
But they didn't because they didn't focus on it.
I see. You got to hold on to the right things.
Yeah.
You know, speaking of leveraging technology in a unique way, I asked ChatGPT what would be some good questions, and I got some.
Here are some interesting questions you could ask Robert Scoble, particularly in the context of your live show on the convergence of robotics and AI's XR.
He's doing my job for me.
There we go. I'll have the answer.
So basically, it's asking a little bit about the future of work.
Yes.
So
which I'm very up to date on that, because this morning I interviewed a guy who's building a project management system where you just tell it, I want to run a conference, and it builds a whole fucking plan.
Is it used like agents or?
Yeah.
In fact, can you describe what an agentic framework is for the audience here for us?
The spreadsheet I saw last week, the founder of that company said it's like having 1,000 interns that all do things for you.
How smart are these interns?
They're like interns.
Okay.
And they'll make some mistakes. This is, AI is not perfect yet, but it's fairly smart.
How will we know when it is perfect?
Well,
like, no more hallucinations, or
when we throw millions and millions of people at everything, and that's coming. But back to this agentic thing, she built a spreadsheet tool. So if you have customers and addresses, well, you can tell a prompt, a column, and say, build me, add in a social media, and all the agents then go out to the internet and start looking for social media for the names and addresses that you've already given it. That's like an intern, right?
Yeah,
you give an intern a little job
it's
like
repeatable.
that, go and research this, go and call all the hotels, go and do this, right? Go and find the cheapest price on something, right? Those are little tasks that you give an intern to, right? And the secret with AI is they all work at the same time.
Right. Okay.
It's
in parallel.
Yeah. So the spreadsheet fills itself in real quick.
Yeah.
Where an intern, if you give a human intern or even 5 human interns that job, it wouldn't fill in so quick.
So what's to stop somebody from creating like 10 or 20 companies at once using these frameworks and then just
That's the prediction that somebody is going to be creating companies real quick, and one of them is going to hit, and he's going to be a billionaire in a couple of years, right? Or she will be.
Sure.
That's possible now. But we're getting thrown so much new stuff that humans are. How many people here? Have used the photo feature in ChatGPT? You send it. Okay. That's actually
50%.
That's pretty good, right? But we're in San Francisco, California. I asked that question in Sun Valley, I get some strange looks. Like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Who's ChatGPT?
What's ChatGPT? Oh, they probably know that. You're talking about that AI thing, right? But they haven't tried it, right? They don't know what it can do, how much it knows. They will find that out in the next 18 months, right? Normal people.
So what percentage of your day are you teaching yourself about artificial intelligence?
Constantly. I'm following 23,000 AI researchers. That's what I do all day long. Right. And then I call them up and say, oh, you caught my eye. I want to know more. Right.
So we're exploring the future right now. Let's go back in time and share some fun stories about Steve Jobs.
Yeah. He's the only CEO who's asked me to look at the back of a product, even today, and was very proud of the back of the product because he did a lot of engineering to make the back look really beautiful and spent a lot of money in manufacturing to make the back of the product beautiful.
So perfectionist.
He's a perfectionist, and he looks holistically at a product that in a way very few people do, right? Because most people, they get a job, they develop the front of the product because that's like a monitor or a computer. They don't have the budget to do the back of the product, right? Or the dictatorship or the leadership to say that's important.
Yeah.
Right? Because you're working at Microsoft or Apple or Adobe or something like that, and you take the shortcut and you don't do it a holistic product. He just was really disciplined about that.
And he was also really good at looking into the future of like, not what's the total available market now, but what's the total available future market. In fact, Mike Maples Jr., who we went to go see a couple days ago, was speaking specifically to that. And he says, Sam Altman is really big in this too. I don't care how many customers you can get today. I want to know about the customers you can get tomorrow. Did this impact how you built Scobleizer? And maybe lay the table for the audience about what Scobleizer is and how you rose to such meteoric success.
I got the name Scobleizer because I worked at San Jose State. I went to San Jose State as a journalist.
Go Spartans.
Go Spartans. Yeah. And because let's back up. Because remember, I was Apple's first child labor. So when I was going to West Valley Community College in Saratoga, I saw a car in the parking lot with the license plate Woz. Well, Woz, who built the motherboards I was building, I wanted to meet him for the worst in the worst way. And I'm like, what is he doing at a community college? I met him, did a newspaper article on him. My first interview was him and of a famous
the
tech person.
Wow.
This was back before Scoble. This was just when I was going to school and studied with him every morning in a community college cafeteria, which proves you don't need to go to Stanford to get a good education. Right?
Yeah.
And that turned into a whole weird thing in college. I wrote a column about technology, right? And I got a job because I talked Woz into donating some computers to the community college journalism department. And my journalism teacher made me set them up and learn Quark Express or learn PageMaker. Remember all this PageMaker? Desktop publishing, right? 89,
for sure.
This was 89. And that got me knowledgeable about how this new desktop publishing thing worked. And then when I got to San Jose State, I was setting up all sorts of people's computers. Yeah. Because I knew how to do it. They didn't. They bought a whole bunch of Macintoshes and they didn't know how to run them. And I also was upgrading them. So I would get betas of like OS 7 or OS 8.
Back when you had to put the...
And I upgraded somebody's computer and she came in and she yelled and she said, I've been Scobleized. I can't use my computer anymore. It changed.
And from then on, it was a verb.
Yeah.
That's so cool. But, so you're hyper technical from early on and you studied it with Woz, which is insane. But you were also one of the first real legitimate content creators.
I cannot write a compiler, right? I'm not going to be building an AI system at NVIDIA or anything like that. I'm not that I'm surface level technical, but I'm good.
That goes. So you were able to be at the convergence of these two things.
Yeah.
And you obviously were able to read the tea leaves or something because you were one of the first, if not the first, real tech influencer.
Yeah.
So did you see this thing coming? Was it just right place, right time?
No. I worked at this programming magazine after I got out of school, and that turned into a conference business. We had 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 people at our conferences. It was a visual basic programmer's journal is where I worked. And two of my speakers told me we should do a session on blogging, and I turned them down, which is... I shouldn't have.
Yeah.
Because later there's entire conferences there's entire conferences just for female bloggers.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Back then it wasn't important enough, right? It was small. There was only 200 people doing it. But they talked me into starting a blog. And quickly I realized that's a great way to talk to nerds around the world.
Sure, yeah. And also be at the epicenter. Like you were curating information, but you're also throwing killer parties,
I didn't do it for that. I did it to share what was going on backstage at the programming conference and all sorts of weird programmers. I mean, that's how I got to interview with quite a few people who've started companies.
Sure.
Right, because they started at a programming conference giving a speech. Don Box was my best speaker. He ended up running HoloLens at Microsoft Corporation. Wow. Right. Wow. So you get to know somebody early in their career, And
when they do great things later.
Yeah, sometimes they turn into billionaires.
Yeah. So speaking of awesome stories, walk us through what it was like for Siri to be launched in your living room. Not many people can say that.
They came to my house twice because the first time they came to my house, I was trying to film them and it wasn't working. I kept finding things that it should have done, it didn't work. And Adam Chire actually stopped the interview and pulled up the back end and showed me how it worked. So I'm one of the few people outside of Apple or Siri that's seen the back end of Siri.
What did it look like?
It looked like a bunch of statements coming in because when you talk to it, like, hey, take me back to my parked car, it parses that and builds a structure that then gets hooked up to the APIs around the web, get an answer and bring it back. It's actually fairly hard-coded. This is why Apple sucks right now. The Siri, in fact, if you ask it, take me back to my car, it doesn't answer. It's stupid.
Yeah. Okay.
If you say, take me back to my parked car, it answers just fine. It knows where your car is.
So context.
And it pulls up the map and takes you back there. It's language. It's hard coding this. It's very inflexible.
Yeah.
The AI it was built with was very inflexible. In fact, Adam and Dag left Apple and started another company called Viv, where they showed me as you type a question, it would write about 200 lines of code in 20 milliseconds, very quick. It would write the code, and it was very much more flexible. They sold that company to Samsung, which is Bixby now.
Is that kind of how Google first made their big jump by indexing all the information so you could just it was accessing previously indexed info?
Yeah. It's funny, I had dinner with Tom Gruber, one of the three guys who started Siri, about 10 years ago. And he said, well, I asked him, what are you learning by being at Apple right now? Because I knew him from launching in my house. And he's like, I'm learning Google is kicking our ass. And I'm like, how do you know that? Oh, we instrumented our system and we instrumented Google's system, and we know Google's AI is learning faster than Apple's AI. That continues to this day, right? Google's AI is more advanced than Apple's AI because it learned more for 10 years, right?
So that brings me to a question of the closed versus the open development ecosystem. Which one are you a champion for, and who's going to win between these two?
Eventually, open should win, but for a while it might be closed. I mean, open AI is closed. That's my favorite right now, right?
Yeah. In fact, somebody was asking us about that. If you use Claude, if you use Anthropic, Perplexity, how are you thinking about these different LLMs?
I use them all and try to force myself to use them all, but ChatGPT has the best voice feature because they have a API called Whisper. So when you're talking to your phone, it's Whisper that's listening to you. And can hear you in a rock concert from 18 inches away from your mouth. When Kai-Fu Lee at Microsoft showed me the first NLP system that they had, the early, it couldn't work in a quiet conference room.
Wow.
So this is mind-blowing to me. It's like, oh man, this thing is really good at getting signal out of
How long
voice.
before it can read our thoughts, do you think?
Do you have a neural link?
Not yet.
Will.
I don't know if I want it. It scares me a little bit.
That's coming. That's the next. So technology comes in waves. The next wave is glasses and robots, humanoid robots. Along with that, or shortly after that, is human brain computer interfaces. Mark Zuckerberg has a band that goes on your arm where you just think about shooting a gun and it shoots the gun.
Wow.
Right? Because it can just by thinking.
Is it biometrics? Is that kind of how it works?
It's watching electricity going through your nerves, and an AI is watching that and can tell you that. I have another device for the back of my head from a company called NextMind, which Snapbot. It has 12 sensors on the back of my head. That's where your visual processing is done. So when I'm looking at you, all that processing is being done back here, and your brain is kicking off a lot of electricity. That if you have a grid of sensors and an AI, it can sort of figure out what you're looking at. Which is really freaky.
That is wild. Speaking of sight,
superpowers.
Just today, Elon got approval from the FDA.
With this device, I could change the TV. They showed me like CNN, MSNBC, and Fox all I'd have to do is look at Fox, and it would change the channel to Fox. It was
Oh my God.
Just from looking at it. So it can tell.
Be careful, Fox is a bad news around these
well,
parts.
you know, okay, CNN, whatever.
Or bad word.
You can go back and forth, but with your mind, right? From the outside of your head, not Neuralink with wires on your brain. Now, once we put wires on your brain, it gets a lot more exact.
Yeah, and just today, Elon got approval from the FDA. You saw that, right?
Yeah.
So can you unpack that a little bit for us? What, is it a product? Is it a service? How does it work?
He has a technology to hook into your optic nerve and put imagery into your visual field without having a glasses in front of you.
It's not like 1080p, is that?
Well, it's probably not that good yet, but you got to start with low res. It's for people who don't have sight. I see. Right?
Got it.
Can't see. Jack into the optic nerve, all of a sudden I can put a computer image in front of them, right? And tell them something about what was in front of them. Eventually you're going to see, you know, TV or wraparound TV or what I call the holodeck. Because the holodeck is coming. We should talk about the holodeck.
Yeah, let's dive in. Can we talk about it now?
Yeah.
Explain what it is and what are the applications?
So everybody here should have gone to the Apple store and gotten the demo of the Vision Pro, right? When you put on the Vision Pro, I see you, but I'm not seeing you. If I had a Vision Pro on right now, I see you on the screens.
It's the camera.
It's the camera that made a 3D thing about you, a holodeck, a voxel map. Everything that is around me is little tiny volumetric pixels.
Okay.
We're moving from a 2D world to a 3D world. We're moving from pixels to voxels. And when you have a device like the Vision Pro on, you get to see the voxels around you and you start thinking, oh shit, I can have a computer change the voxels, right? Because I turn the dial and all of a sudden I'm in Yosemite National Park, right? I'm not looking at you anymore. Or the wall changes to Yosemite National Park and you're here, right? Just by changing that.
When I think of what truly immersive technology is, Robert, I think the voxels that you just described for us in conjunction with something like haptic feedback, where it's like there's nothing actually there, but it's vibrations that can kind of.
Well, wait. It gets really crazy quick.
Let's go down the rabbit hole.
I was in Prague at Somnium Space's launch of their new VR headset. So they make a VR headset that has a 140-degree field of view. It's a fairly expensive headset. It's about $6,000 for the headset and then $4,000 for the PC that's running it. So $10,000. But it's mind fucking blowing.
Really?
Right?
Yeah.
They also invested in a company called Tesla Suit, not the Tesla company, not Elon Musk Tesla, Tesla Suit. This suit has electrodes every few inches inside, and it can shock you.
Really?
Burn you, sort of.
Sure.
And so they put me inside.
For like video games, maybe.
Yes, they put me inside this suit. It's a $13,000 suit right now, but you know that's what it is. They put me inside Half-Life Alyx shooting things and people shooting at me. And if they shot me, my suit hurt.
Wow.
And I'm like, oh, that's weird.
Yeah.
Right? And they also sell a pair of gloves that can do all sorts of stuff with motors and with sensors in the gloves to have you feel like you're touching something or manipulating something physically with your hands, which is really cool.
Wait, how is that going to impact, say, like remote surgery, do you think?
That was invented over here at SRI. Haptics play a huge role in human controlling the robot, right? Okay. I did a suture in a piece of fake skin in a robot.
You did this?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
And the haptics are pretty cool. If you study like OSSO VR, they're doing surgeon training in VR with a machine like that to go and do training over and over. If you're doing some complex move that you really need to practice through, that's the company that you would be using there. Then if you get into the surgery room, you're probably wearing a HoloLens, which lays all your scans on top of your body and locks them to your soft tissues with AI. And it turns the surgery into a video game. It tells them when the cutting tool is in the right place to cut the tumor out, stuff like that. And that's with the Microsoft HoloLens. That's the magic of augmented reality. It's too heavy and too expensive to bring it to consumers so far, right? I have a HoloLens, I have a Vision Pro. I can't tell my best friends to go and buy a Vision Pro. It's too heavy. It's a pain in the ass to use. it is the future. It's fucking insane when you're inside, but it's a heavy thing.
The one that you said it was 6,000 for the headset and 4,000 for the PC. How much better is that than the experience with Apple Vision Pro, with the experience of the Oculus?
All right, so Vision Pro gives you about a 90-degree field of view, which is, this is about 50 degrees.
Yeah.
That's 70. That's 90. This was 140. It went behind you.
Wow. Okay.
So if you're going to do a simulator, if you're going to play a video game or be in a new kind of movie or go to a Lady Gaga concert or something like that, you want that wrap-around experience because that immerses your brain and makes you think you're at the concert, right?
Sure, I see.
Or playing the game or whatever, or in a classroom or whatever. They were showing off Flight Simulator that was mind-blowing. I turned the stick and my mind thought the plane was turning. No, I was sitting on a conference room floor like I am right here, right?
That's incredible.
But it was so good at fooling your mind into thinking you're in reality when you're not. You're
what a trip.
Digital.
So we're going to open this up to the audience for some questions. So start thinking about what we'd like to ask Robert while we've got him here.
Yeah.
But speaking of immersive elements, there was a company called Scent Sciences a couple of years ago, and it was essentially if you're watching a movie and you're going through the jungle, there'd be like a little tss, and it would smell like musty, or like if you're walking on the beach, it'd be like tss, and it's like I smell the sea breeze or something like this.
Go to Sephora's R&D lab over here in South San Francisco. They have a whole store inside a warehouse.
Wow.
Right? So that they can walk through and do experiments and stuff like that. They showed me their scent machine that sprays perfume matched to the real product, but it's not your perfume. It's just a scent, so you can see, you can smell what that smells like without sticking it on your skin or something like that.
I see.
So they have 40 different scents that they can spray at you at a Sephora store now.
Wow.
Right? That's one way to look at it.
Yeah.
There are devices that do scents. They're just bigger. They're big and they're expensive. They're about $1,000, and they only do a certain number of scents. But you're absolutely right. It fills in that kind of thing. I was doing VR at a company called The Void. I don't know if you ever did any of these things. If you went around America for a while, there was a whole bunch of LBEs, location-based entertainment, stores and shopping malls that had put you into VR and did various things. The Void was one of these companies. And they, when you blew up the Marshmallow Man, you smelled the marshmallow scent. They sprayed some marshmallow scent to you. Yeah, and it really does blow your mind because it furthers the immersion. Yeah. It furthers the brain's trickery into thinking it's real, right? And it really is enjoyable to smell something at the right time.
The dopamine, of course.
Just simulations are fun.
You are an absolute wealth of knowledge. This has been so fun.
We haven't even started talking about humanoid robots yet, or
well, let's dive right in because
there's a company down in Palo Alto in the garage right now. They have a row of 3D printers. They can print out a 4-foot-high little humanoid robot for about $8,000. So the price is starting to come down to consumer level.
When are we going to have a robot doing my dishes and making my bed?
There's a lot of people working on it because there's a big reward to get it done. Obviously, most people in the AI industry think Elon is the best position, Tesla with Optimus, but you got Figure just got $700 million. I just saw 1x.tech company, which has a humanoid robot called Neo. They haven't announced a price, but it shouldn't be that much more than let's call it $25,000 to start with. Sure. But it should not be very high priced. Yeah. Real quick, because the costs of the motors and the body are coming way down every year. Right?
Especially when they're doing like 1 million of these units, it starts to make more sense.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead and ask some questions from the audience. If you have a question here, feel free to raise your hand and feel free to.
These people don't have context of what's in my head.
Yeah, well, help us understand. Like, how are you? I mean,
I've launched thousands of companies, so we can talk about a little bit that. I thought I was going to talk about AI and real estate.
Sure, we could do that.
In fact, I worked for a guy who owns now the 3 largest buildings in San Antonio, Texas, Graham Weston, for 7 years. And if you drive around with him, he's like a Zillow. He'll tell you, oh, that house had a murder in it, or that house, or this house is famous. He knows all sorts of stuff about real estate. He has a mind that sucks in.
He's passionate about it.
Passion, and has a mind that sucks it in.
So he's able to aggregate information about homes, like you're able to do that with
he knows
innovation.
The school system, right? He knows where the grocery stores are in the neighborhood. He knows a lot about what a person would need to know to buy a piece of real estate in his town. And then he knows it for commercial and residential, which makes him very fascinating to be around. He actually he started Rackspace because he had one of the tallest buildings in San Antonio, rented a floor to these three guys who started Rackspace, and goes, that's real estate, and that was cloud computing. They were selling portions of a rack of computers to different people. That's cloud computing.
So he was ahead of the game.
Yeah, and he made $1 billion.
Now we can't make enough of those.
No.
Yeah.
So today everybody has that with ChatGPT. You can ask ChatGPT, hey, my wife and I are thinking about buying a house here in West San Francisco. Tell us what neighborhood to check out.
Yeah, that's what Sam Altman calls intelligence on demand. So let's get a question here. Dwayne, did you have a question for Robert? And maybe since we're talking about real estate and AI, do you want to give a quick plug on what you're building here, or what you're working on?
I'll plug after you guys are done.
Okay.
We'll save the best. Save the best for last. But
Robert, so GPT 01 came out. What's your impression on that?
It's hard for a normal person to tell, because if you just ask it, like something like we were just talking about, tell us about school districts here. It's fairly similar to the other models. It's actually a little slower, or a lot slower, and it costs more money to use if you're using it as a developer. So you have to choose which model to use for which purposes. The new model is better at planning. So if you ask it, like I told it, I'm a fat white dude who doesn't exercise. I'd like to run a marathon in 2 years. Can you plan that out? And it does. And it does a lot better job than the older model does, because it's better at reasoning and thinking and planning things out in a lot of ways. It's getting smarter and filling in some of the mistakes and some of the problems of the other models along that line. So you have to sort of try it and understand, what does that do well. Planning and reasoning gets to it, right? If you know you need planning and reasoning, you're probably going to use the 01 model. If you don't need planning and reasoning, you're going to use another model, because the other models are faster and probably maybe even give you a better answer, right? If you're just asking for Silicon Valley history or something like that, you don't need any reasoning or planning. So the other models are better at that kind of specific task. So if you talk to a lot of people about the models, you'll start seeing this kind of, oh no, it's really good for this, but it sort of sucks for this, right?
So last year, OpenAI, when they had their big global headlines because of Sam Altman, it came out that they had a secret model called Q-Star.
Yeah.
And now this GPT-01 or Strawberry is supposed to be Q-Star.
Yeah.
What's your impression of that?
It's along those lines. It's like it brings new capabilities. It's not mind blowing. It's not like 10 times better across the board, right? It's not that. It's not, AGI or something that's totally perfect and great for everything. It's really good at planning and reasoning. It's a new capabilities along those lines, and it's quite good for that. So it's sort of a mixed bag. It's not the kind of model that I can stand in front of 4,000 people and say everybody's going to see 10 times better answer all the time. You're not.
So last question.
Yeah.
So in June, OpenAI or GPT had an update. I forgot what it's called. Oh, 4.0, right?
Yeah.
4.0 was in June or something like that.
Yeah.
And then now they released 01. So when is GPT-5 going to come out?
Who
What's
knows?
that going to be like?
yeah,
There's always another model coming. It's like the technology industry. You buy a laptop today, there's going to be another one in a month that's going to be better, right? Cheaper, faster. And that's going to be true. I want to bring a second answer to your previous question about O1. I just saw a project management company that you just tell it a project and then it starts planning out your project. He says that process is much better on the O1 model because it's really good at planning and reasoning and building a new kind of user interface. So you're seeing new kinds of companies that use the reasoning capabilities of this new model in new ways, literally coming out like now, right? Because the model just
What kind of applications are more suitable for these multi-step reasoning required problems?
All of them, because so if you ask ChatGPT to write you a book, it'll try and write you a book. It won't be very good. If you ask it, write me a table of contents, it writes you a really good table of contents. And then if you tell it, okay, take the first chapter, because it wrote you a table of contents, write me just the first chapter, it does better than if you just told it to write the entire book. By splitting up the task into littler pieces, AI does better. Well, the agentic systems now do that from the ground. That's how they're
built
work.
that way.
Yeah, when you ask it to, plan me an AI conference for 5,000 people, that's your task. It chews that and starts breaking that into smaller pieces, smaller things, because that's how we work, right?
Sure.
You want to run a conference? We need a hotel. We need to think about certain things. We need some speakers, right? And we start splitting it up into smaller tasks that we can assign to people. And that's how you should think about this new world. You're soon going to have 1,000 interns working for you on a spreadsheet.
Wow.
Think about that. You're going to be tooling around. Oh, I need some work done. You're just going to say to your column, hey, get me some new data. And 1,000 things are going to spring up.
Yeah.
Go out to the internet, start searching for information, filling in your cells. And what's really amazing is they don't work like humans.
24/7, they're not lazy.
No, they
never get sick.
They work at the same time.
You're in parallel, like you're saying.
Parallel.
Yeah.
So they bring all the answers real quick.
Yeah.
Humans can't do that.
Sure.
You give me a task like that, find all the addresses for your customers or something like that. It takes me a while. This thing does it in a few seconds.
It's interesting to me how much inspiration for the development of these frameworks has come from nature. Yeah. So like it's kind of similar to like biomimicry, like similar to how Velcro was first founded, right? So when we think of these frameworks, is that going to continue to push in that direction from like specific node learning and then sharing that information with another node? Help us understand how that.
It's going to get very weird. In 5 years, we're all going to be wearing some sort of digital glasses.
Wow.
Right? Zuckerberg's spending $40 billion on them. Apple's spending $40 billion on them. Google's spending some amount of money on them. So that right there's 3 companies. And that's not counting LG, Samsung, BOE that's making the little projectors. Right. These things are coming. Yeah. When we get to that, we're going to be filling in the holes. So I went to the Smithsonian this summer and took a lot of pictures there and asked ChatGPT to tell me about what it was seeing. And it knew every fucking thing.
Wow.
Right?
Wow.
This is mind-blowing.
Right.
To have a computer that can look at a photo and tell you what's in the photo.
Yeah.
And
not a muffin versus a chihuahua. I'm sure you've seen this.
I took a picture of my wife's soup. It told me the cultural relevance of the soup, the Iranian name of the soup, what was in the soup, how to make the soup. It's fucking insane from a single photo. Yeah. Right?
And what's crazy to think is like it's like you mentioned, Mark is spending $40 billion a year. It only costs us $10 billion to get to the moon. Yeah. So it's kind of like seems like a disparity from what these.
It's a hard job.
It's going like crazy.
There's a lot of technology that's going into these waveguides and into these glasses that are coming. But where I was going is if we all went to the Smithsonian and there's a few things that aren't correct in the Smithsonian, right? Or it doesn't know about a new display or a new thing that just got delivered. It hasn't ever had a photo of it. It's not on the internet, so it's not part of the model. Yeah. We're going to teach it.
Oh, it'll update.
I did that this last weekend in Sun Valley, Idaho. I went to an art museum there. It knew a lot about what was in the museum, even in a small town like that. but there were a few local artists that it didn't know a whole lot about. And I was teaching it about the local artists, right? And having a conversation about it with it.
If
just learning about that. So when you go to Sun Valley and meet that artist or see that artist up on the wall, it's going to know a lot more because it's learning over time. And it's the learning speed that matters in AI.
Yeah.
Yeah, Tom Gruber told me that at Siri. So that if the other companies are learning faster than you are, you're fucked.
Sure, yeah.
Eventually.
It's weird that we've as humans, we've always been used to being the smartest species on the earth, and that's changing quickly.
Yeah.
So I guess like if AI is going to be doing these jobs better than us, are we going to have some kind of like
joblessness problem?
Well, not only that, but like I would say challenge with feeling like we're contributing in a meaningful way.
Yeah.
Like what does the future look like?
What is it
in that capacity?
To be a human being after you're jacked in on a Neuralink and you have a humanoid robot doing all your shit and your job is gone, right? What does it mean to be a human being? That's a real interesting question. I don't have all the answers.
Sure.
There.
Yeah. It gets philosophical, deep.
Well, you can ask you can ask AI these questions. It's really pretty good at answering these questions. It's sort of funny. You ask AI, how do you keep AI from going unaligned and killing everybody? It tells you, it'll tell you what you have to do. And this is the problem. We have to ask it for help.
Yeah.
And that's hard for a lot of men.
Yeah, sure.
We don't like asking questions, right?
Of course not, because we already have the answers.
Well, we think we do.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
And no, we don't anymore. We're in a new world that's coming at us. It's a scary new world.
Yeah.
I see on the other side there's a lot of goodness, but yeah, we're going to have a very volatile decade, I think, ahead of us because of these technologies. Because let's be honest, we are putting a lot of people out of work. You're here in San Francisco, you see the autonomous cars here.
Yeah.
Truck driving is the #1 job in America. 1.3 million people drive a truck. We know that job is going away in the next 20 years.
It's also, I think, 5 times larger than the taxi market as well.
Freight, and there's lots of companies trying to put those jobs out of work, right?
Yeah. It's just creative destruction.
Yeah, they even joke about it in the AI industry. I'm putting people out of work. It's like, we better think about that and have some way to get people re-educated to a job that actually has some value to people.
Right.
Eventually, maybe we won't have jobs. We'll have,
so like a
applications
post-labor economy. So this kind of touches a little bit on universal basic income. Are you for this generally or against this? I mean, people need to earn the
I don't
revenue,
like that yet. My dad escaped poverty by getting a GI Bill. He went to the military, got the wealth to go to Rutgers University and get a PhD. That pulled us out of poverty. So government policy can change economies and people's lives by doing that. I'd rather do something like that.
Yeah.
Give that truck driver that we're going to put out of work 4 years in the school paid. Like everything's covered so that they don't have to worry about driving or working at McDonald's or some stupid ass job to try to feed their family while they're being retrained. I'm much more for a policy like that than just giving people a check, because they'll never give us enough money to live here in San Francisco. It's expensive here. You might be able to live in Indiana where a house is $110,000, but not here. Right.
It's always interesting to zoom out and look at general. Go ahead.
Communism is bad for human beings.
Sure. We tried that.
Well, people need a mission in life. I think you nailed it. I know a lot of billionaires who still work.
Sure.
And I asked a few of them, why are you working? You're a billionaire. You don't need to work. And a couple of them, one guy who started Hotmail told me, I tried to sit on a beach for a few years and I was bored to tears.
Sure.
And my wife made me go get a job to save our marriage.
Gotta keep the wife happy.
Right? Get the fuck out of the house and go get something to do. Right? Right?
Yeah.
And so he starts companies out, right? And does things. Right.
So I love your philosophy. I love how you can see trends in the market. And if we zoom out, we can see back when, back before technology or the Industrial Revolution, like let's say you were the best blacksmith and I was the best baker. Our craft was part of our how we saw ourselves, and people would come all around for that specific product. Well, when the Industrial Revolution hit and efficiency skyrocketed, you separated the worker from the craft, which sucks because all of a sudden you're taking away the meaning of how we work,
We've
right?
done
And
this
so now,
go back to my first, where I learned how to solder on an Apple II motherboard and stuff it. It took me half an hour to stuff it, and it took my mom about half an hour to solder it by hand, hundreds of components.
wow.
My first job was working at Hewlett Packard on a wave solder machine. It did all that shit in 20 seconds.
Oh my God. That's insane.
So that's technology, right?
Yeah.
Technology comes along and wipes out something that you used to do, but makes it way easier, way faster, way better.
Right.
And now you don't do that anymore.
Sure.
You do something else.
Something higher order that's more meaningful.
The trick is we need to retrain ourselves to do something else, right?
Yeah.
Whether it be some art, if we're going to be all artists
Sure.
someday, well, we're going to have to go and learn how to do pottery or glass or paint a picture, or right.
So how do you define?
Linda Wyman, who's a billionaire, has a clay thing in her house, right? She has a whole studio with 3D printers for 3D printing out clay, right? So if you want to fuck around, you gotta go to school and learn some new things to fuck around.
Yeah, exactly. Get time. So this might be a little esoteric, but how do you define meaning for an individual?
What do you tell the grandkids when you're at the end of your life? What story do you tell people?
That's awesome. That's a great answer. That's fantastic. So we have a couple more questions. Feel free to hop up. Yes, go ahead. Yeah. Hi there.
So I'm a realtor and I'm loving ChatGPT for a bunch of stuff. So broker tour, I never have to think about which place to go first.
Sorry, can you pass it to me?
My property listings, I never have to write the word quintessential on my own pen. But it's how we go form now. I mean, we'll kind of plug in part of the contract. Sidekick just came out.
Yeah.
So that's what was kind of running that with the association this week. What else is going to make my life easier and so let me provide value?
Yeah.
That's a good question.
Real estate. I actually asked ChatGPT for some help with this question. I asked it, what did I ask it?
I love that we both.
I said, I'm speaking to 200 people in the AI industry this afternoon about how AI is going to change real estate. I wonder, what are your thoughts on this? And I said, property search and recommendations is going to change, hyper-personalized property recommendations, which is going to be a big deal. You're going to teach AI a lot about yourself. We talk about privacy is dead. My psychiatrist uses ChatGPT to listen to our therapy sessions and write highly detailed scientific notes. She wrote really interesting prompts to make this shit happen.
Couldn't you do that by yourself? No?
No, because there's some value to having a human asking you questions and talking with you about your life and what the problems are, the reason you're there. In 30 minutes, it nailed all my mental illnesses. And it wrote down a lot of other things. And she says now it's going to be malpractice not to use AI because it's caught things that she's missed in her sessions. Because it's really good at seeing little tiny patterns that you might not remember week to week, right? A therapist has, a psychiatrist meets with you for 20 weeks, right? And she might not notice you mentioned psoriasis back in week 3, she told me. And it turns out psoriasis is an indicator for depression. It causes depression, and something about it is connected to depression.
I see.
And she missed it, and the computer caught it, right? And it's caught several other things. She's actually working with a prison down in Texas to try to figure out if people are able to stand trial.
If they're crazy or not.
If they're crazy or not. Are they on the crazy side or on the okay side to go stand? Do they understand the charges against them?
Yeah, sure.
The sheriff told me he has 3,000 people being held beyond constitutional rights because of this problem. He wants them out of the prison.
Sure.
And he wants them to face their charges.
Yeah.
And so she's using this to try to figure out who is lying, who is telling the truth, right? Who is really crazy and can't face charges and needs to be institutionalized, and who actually is like faking it and trying to get away from their charges. And the computer's really good at figuring that kind of thing out. The government SRI lab, where the internet started, Siri started, a whole bunch of stuff started here at Menlo Park at a lab called SRI.
Stanford Research Institute.
Yeah, they don't like calling it Stanford anymore because they're not associated with Stanford, but
Got it. Okay.
S is Stanford. And they showed me an AI that you read 200 words off of a card. Everybody reads the same card, and it can tell who is suicidal in the room.
Wow.
Just from the frequency in your voice, the stress in your voice, the way you talk.
It sounds like Minority Report.
It totally is, right?
Which is like over 20 years old.
But this is the foundation of a whole bunch of stuff about to happen in medical. Dan Kitlaus, who started Siri, has a new company called Riva Health. You put your finger on the phone camera like this, and it tells you your blood pressure because it sees the color changes in your skin, underneath your skin, from the camera. That's all you need is a standard camera, and it can tell you your blood pressure, right? And there's a whole bunch of things like that are going to watch us. There's 13 diseases on the back of your eye, so if I can see inside your eye,
Which app do you want to open?
That's crazy.
it listens. It's just stupid.
So let's ask another question here, please. Go ahead.
Yeah. So, like you give the example of a psychiatrist or like therapist. The therapist being able to having to use ChatGPT or LLMs to avoid malpractice because they are getting better at detecting things. And they are.
Sorry, I
It's
don't
almost like
understand.
they can now see more patients because of that instead of like spending 1 hour listening to every patient.
And better care because she's listening to you now instead of writing notes, you know, and actually noticing you in present, right? And she says, my care has gone way better because of
it's
this.
not just personal assistant, it's like having a team of personal assistants under you. Do you see this in all jobs going forward that like, you know, I think about it as football, then there are people who have passed and suddenly the quarterbacking is so important. Do you see humans being the quarterback of their own lives, passing balls around and like LLMs just like going and catching those and doing a job for us? Or do we feel like more like coaches from the sidelines, not participating in our own lives?
Both. There's joy in playing football. I've been asking the humanoid robot companies, when is it going to throw me a football? Right? Because that's one thing I want to. When I get a little robot, I want to take it out front, throw some football. You know?
That sounds fun.
You know, they said version 2 or 3. In other words, 2027, 2028, 2029. Right? So they already have an idea. Oh no, the motors that we have in the hands can't snap the ball like Tom Brady. Right? So there's a lot of people having fun in this industry trying to think of like that. You're going to have an assistant that's going to help you do whatever you want to do. If you want to learn Spanish, you don't need to learn Spanish anymore to talk to anybody because you got AI now that can translate you in real time. So there's no reason to learn Spanish. But you as a human might want to learn Spanish just because it's fun.
Build relationships.
And build a new kind of skill in your brain, right? The AI can teach you how to learn Spanish.
Or to understand when your wife is yelling at you in another language, right?
my wife grew up in Tehran. She can yell at me in Farsi. My mom grew up in Germany. She yelled at me in German. So,
wow, okay.
So
you're taking you from all, it's like United Nations.
This is why I don't learn languages. I have mother block in my head, right? You know.
Which the GPT could tell you in the sit downs, right?
It now translates us in real time. Right. So but it can also teach you how to speak Farsi, right? And take you step by step. It's really good. AI is a really amazing learning tool. It's a teaching tool. And when you pair it with the augmented reality, for instance, in VR, I was using a thing called Nanome, which is an app made for material scientists and chemists and stuff like that. In Nanome, they blew up the virus bigger than this room, and you could see the chemical structure of how it was built by nature, right? You could see the oxygen and the carbon, right?
Yeah.
And you could even touch them and change them. And then I had 3 scientists walking around with me virtually. So they were in their home somewhere wearing a VR headset, and I was
That is crazy.
just like this, but we were you know, talking about this virus around us.
Yeah.
And so you're going to start having this new kind of learning that our kids are going to learn things that used to take a week, and they're going to learn them in 10 minutes, or maybe even in real time on top of things. Like if you want to learn how to to fix a sink, you know, let's say the garbage disposal in the kitchen's broken, we need to fix it. It could teach you in real time how to do that step by step by step. Right?
Using computer vision or something.
Yeah. And by the way, that was another thing Matteo showed me in Germany, was that kind of real-time learning, where you could learn how to take apart an oil pump in real time on top of the pump without reading a manual, without having any training. It would tell you, take those 3 screws, and it would watch you work, and it would validate that you did it properly.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
So it's like a live coach kind of a...
Mercedes built an augmented reality app for all the last 30 years of Mercedes cars, tablet augmented reality that they hand to the first responders. It shows the first responder who are, let's say you have a really bad wreck in a Mercedes and you need to be cut out of the car.
Sure.
It shows them how to cut the car apart without hitting gas or electrical lines.
Wow.
It shows them in real time on top of the car that's wrecked how to cut it apart.